In this video, we have another coaching demonstration for you. One of our certified coaches walks a client through abandonment triggers, which is a big issue for so many of us. And this exercise is something that we teach in our certification programs. It's going to be a great, powerful tool for you to have in your coaching tool belt. Now, if you're new to this channel or you don't know much about me, for the last 15 and a half years, I've been really studying coaching. And we have hundreds of clients that have gone through our coaching certification programs. We've had thousands of people go through training programs to help build a business and really increase your confidence and certainty as a coach, which is the key ingredient for success in today's hyper distracted, hyper competitive marketing world. Now, you're going to want to watch this whole video, stick around to the end so you get the entire conversation and understand how it applies in different areas of your life and in your business. And hey, if you're dealing with your own abandonment triggers or something else you're struggling with in your life, go ahead and participate in this process as a client. And who knows, you might have a massive breakthrough. So get out a pad and paper and really study this as a student of coaching. The more you understand how much of an art form coaching is, the more certainty you'll have and the more attraction you'll have for potential clients. Enjoy.
So I want to take you through an exercise, and I want you to tell me about a problem, an area that you feel stuck in. You're very conflicted.
Yeah, for me, this is a trigger that I noticed, and I'd like to clear what it roots down to. But usually when people don't do what they say or their actions don't match their words, it's a trigger for me. And one of those places is just in simple texting. And it's not just you didn't text back. So ghosting is when you don't text back to somebody over a period of time or the habit changes from what you know their behavior to be. And it's just as easy for me to just tell me what's up versus they're in their stuff and they just stop texting. But it's a trigger and it's still there, even though I have addressed different areas of this. I noticed over this last few days that it still exists at some level. So that is how I know it irritates me.
Awesome. Okay, so, and I believe I heard this in your response, but I'm just going to ask, how is this a problem for you?
The feelings it brings up within me is a little bit of abandonment, so I'll leave it at that. We'll just,
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. So we're going to go into this exercise. So what I want you to do is I want you to pick a spot on the wall.
Okay.
Okay. And I want this spot to be slightly above eye level. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I want you to focus all of your energy and attention on that spot. You might even notice your face muscles tighten as you put all of your attention on that spot. And now take all of the thoughts, emotions, feelings, judgments, and opinions of that problem, and just imagine throwing them into that spot. Okay? It's as though that spot is a black hole, sucking all the energy surrounding the problem into that wall. So it's no longer in your body or in your mind. Notice how your face and body relax a little as all the tension from that problem gets sucked into that wall. Now, while you're still looking at that spot, begin to expand your awareness beyond that spot. So you become aware of everything to the left, to the right, above, and below, with all of your peripheral vision. Now expand your awareness so much that you can almost see what's behind you. Now, Michelle, I want you to tell me, what were you pretending not to know in order to hold on to that old problem?
That this feeling that it produces for me goes back to an experience from 10 years ago with a friendship, and it just because it reminds me of how I felt in that scenario doesn't mean that it's the same thing with this person. And I don't have to, I can choose to respond differently with this relationship than what was in the past.
What learnings were you meant to learn all along that's positive for your future?
What's coming up is just what I make things mean. That's a pattern that I don't have to hold on to. That people get busy, that their response isn't always a reflection of me or what's happening. And friendships, relationships go in and out of cycles. And what's coming to me right now is there's always gifts people bring you. And perhaps some of these learnings are to help me continue to heal these areas of myself that I'm willing to let go of.
So I want you to preserve, protect those positive learnings for yourself. And so you can call on those, use those into your future. Okay? So Michelle, what are you having for lunch today?
I haven't thought about it.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, and then we're gonna keep. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to soak up this new awareness that you have around ghost texting. I want you to soak it up and embody it so that it's in your cells, right?
Yeah.
Does anything else need to happen for you right here and now?
No, it feels pretty complete.
You feel complete?
Yeah.
Awesome. Virtual high five.
Nice job.
All right, gang. Feedback. How do we do?
They went to lunch.
Oh.
Before that, yeah, go to lunch. Before that, I want you to go ahead and ask that final question because it's slightly different than just checking for completion.
Okay.
The final question, step 6, which isn't in the manual, but it's on the slide now. Connect her to the choice. What is
the choice. So what new choice are you going to decide to make going forward when you are getting ghosted on your text messages?
I'm going to choose to not read too much into it and to just let everything play out as it should without taking it all on emotionally and personally. And if I need to have a conversation when the time comes, we have a conversation.
That's good. That's good.
Cool. Do you feel complete, Ibrahim?
I feel complete. I actually like that final step. It did put a bow on the package. That choice point. It made me feel like she was empowered after the exercise, that she was left with a decision that she could make when she's confronted with being ghost texted. So that was good.
Bingo. And that's the whole point. That we take realization and turn it into action to give people something to do. And sometimes it might seem like it is almost a no-brainer. Well, of course you're going to do this thing because you just had this realization. But especially people that aren't into coaching and haven't been studying all these things and not really super into personal development or what have you, a lot of times they don't make the connection between the dots. And one of the reasons is this could be this massive remembering that takes their breath away, that gives them goosebumps. I just got goosebumps just saying that. Like, I mean, it could just be such a big thing that they're literally in this space of like fogginess for good reasons, but they don't make the connection of, okay, how do I take this gift that I just got and do something with it, or stop doing other things with it? So that last question of doing is really critical for what you said. So thank you guys both, Ibrahim and Michelle. Thank you for the demo. That was, according to my clock, 9 minutes and 36 seconds. How about that for setting the intention, huh? All right, so we're gonna get some feedback here. What I wanna do is, actually let's do the feedback first. Let's see. So I'll give you my feedback, and then other people that have anything to share, you can add on. And remember, we talk about could haves, not should haves. So Ibrahim, you did a great job of getting clarity on the issue and not spending a whole lot of time. You know, you didn't need to know the names of the friends that she's been experiencing this with. You didn't need to know, in this case, how long it's been going on or how many. You didn't need to know some of those things, because the essence is just this idea of ghosting and what she's making it mean. You did a good job asking her the question that she had already answered beforehand. Now she's a coach. She just went through the whole process, so she kind of knows what the next step is. I don't know if that's why she did that, but that's usually not going to happen, you know, out in the real world, when people don't know the playbook, so they don't know like what's coming next and so forth. And all of that is fine. There's nothing wrong with any of that. So, you know, there wasn't any judgment in that toward you, Michelle, at all. But you still asked the question, Ibrahim, which I think is good. And you even said, now you kind of just answered this, but I'm going to ask you again. And it's amazing to me how many times when we ask a question that has already been answered, we get a different answer. And I would say most of the time, the second answer is usually the real one, because you're asking the question directly. And when they have to answer the question directly, it just often produces something different. And it like gives that question its own box, so to speak, instead of just being included in the last question. So I like that you did that. And then you got into the process, pretty much followed the script, which is great. one of the things that we have to remind ourselves of as coaches is that the people that we're coaching out there, they haven't done any of this stuff. So even if you've seen expanded awareness done like 7 times and it's the same script over and over and over again, don't take your own boredom with the script or with the process and introduce it into a new conversation, because they're not bored with it. And you don't need to deviate from the thing that works just because you've heard it over and over and over again, or you've done it over and over and over again. This is one of those exercises where you just follow the script, just keep to that thing, and it does the work. Michelle said some really powerful things. I think the very first thing she said after the question, what were you pretending not to know, is that just because I'm being reminded of something doesn't mean it's the same thing. That was so profound. Again, it's one of those simple statements that just changes everything. So just because I'm being reminded of abandonment doesn't mean they're abandoning me. Everything. That is so powerful. Every new person, every new relationship, every new day, and we can even say that inside the same relationship. Just because somebody was mad at you yesterday doesn't mean that they're going to be mad at you today. Or just because somebody did something yesterday doesn't mean the intentions for what they're doing today is the same as it was yesterday. That statement is so critical. I don't think I've ever heard it worded quite that way, and I love it. Then she went on to talk about what I make things mean is, that's the realization, and it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the thing that's actually going on, and their response isn't a reflection of me. I love that. So I added a couple words. Their response to me isn't a reflection of me. We did a process in New York, a feedback exercise, and the whole point was basically what you think of me doesn't mean that's who I am. It's what you think of me. It's your experience of me. And that reflection piece is so powerful. Their response is not a true reflection. And then she said, I want to heal areas of myself that I'm willing to let go of, which is great because now we're taking it internal. So these are all the things that we're listening for, right? And if she hadn't gotten to this point of taking ownership of what she can do with herself, then that's what we would want to get the client to do, is how can I do something about me? This is more about me than the circumstances. This is about my lenses, not what I'm seeing through those lenses. So that is a great place to then kind of move on to the next one. You checked for completion, which is great. And then, we went back and asked that question, what is it that you want to do? One thing that I will invite you and everybody is to pay attention to when people say, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to not do something. So she said some version of, I'm going to not allow it to bother me, or I'm going to not make it mean what I used to make it mean. Now that sounds fantastic. And it's not a thing to do. It's a thing to not do. And going back to the idea of giving people concrete action, we don't want somebody to go, don't do this. It's like if I told you how to get to the new office so you could get into the recording studio, and I go, here's what you do. You don't go to North Dakota. All right, so now you're not going to go to North Dakota, but what are the chances that you're actually going to get here? Probably not at all. There's no chance unless you figure out what to do and not what not to do. We typically go to what not to do because we know that's the problem, and so we got to stop doing the problem. But that actually doesn't pave a path to follow. So what you could have done, and what I would suggest you do, is, okay, Michelle, you're not going to let everything play out the way it used to, or you're going to let everything play out from a positive sense. You're not going to make it mean abandonment. What are you going to do instead? And then maybe there's like an affirmation for them to read. This could be a case where you give people a strategy, a new strategy to create more control over their thoughts, over their emotions. So maybe they have something on their phone. Maybe they have something that they commit to memory. Maybe they think back to a time in their life or an experience where they remind themselves that once upon a time they thought something was a certain way, but it wasn't a way. It wasn't that way. That wasn't truth. And so that person could be like an anchor for them. Maybe it's somebody who's passed on, or some relationship that's really important to them. Or maybe they just remind themselves. Like for me, Sean, I get irritated when people ghost my emails. I've never used that term, but I'm going to start using it now. When I feel like people haven't responded to my emails, and then you know what I do? I look at my own inbox that has probably 700 unresponded to emails. So that's a STFU moment, if there ever was one, because here I am getting frustrated that people aren't responding to me, and I got all these people in my inbox that I haven't responded to. And a lot of them I've engaged in conversation, like I've initiated the conversation, and they responded back, and I didn't respond back to them. So a lot of times we just need to check ourselves. And usually the things that are irritating us externally are irritating us internally first. And that's where a lot of the do actions can come from. What I need to do first. So for me, again, in my example, I can spend 30 minutes a day, let's say, or 30 minutes a week, or whatever I come up with, responding to emails, because then I'm going to get back into integrity with this value that I've been out of integrity with. And as long as I'm in integrity with my value, then the other people not following their word won't be as big of a deal to me. So we didn't have to go there in this case, and I don't need to know the answer right now, but a question that you could have asked also is, are there times when you don't get back to people? Actually, I would ask that question. The question I was going to ask is, do you have text messages in your phone right now that you haven't responded to? Now, the answer to that one might be no, but a good question is, are there times when you don't immediately get back to people? And the answer is going to be yes to that one. And then what are some of those times? And maybe she says, well, like I was away, I was in Europe for 5 days and I didn't get back to all my text messages. Okay, great. So now we're just opening up the awareness from her perspective that people have things to do. And maybe let's give people some grace. Maybe they're having a horrible day. Maybe their cat just got run over by a car. Maybe they're in the hospital. Like, we don't know what's going on in other people's lives. And if we clean up what we can internally and then give other people the benefit of the doubt from our own perspective, because we know sometimes when we don't answer calls or text messages, we actually have a very valid reason that has nothing to do with abandonment. That has nothing to do with I don't like them. It's just I'm busy, or I haven't responded yet because I want the time to respond. And this is what happens with me a lot of times. I leave my text messages in my phone unread. I won't open them because I don't want to forget them. Once that little notification goes away, I don't want to forget them. And I want to have time to go back and actually answer with a little bit more intention. So that's another thing that we could have her do in this case, or other people with their own issues, is how can we clean up where they're out of integrity? And then how can we see other people's potential perspective from our own experiences from the past? All right, what else does anybody else have to add to the process and to offer some could haves?
I would just add that, Ibrahim, you gave her great space. You didn't rush the question. You added different tones, so your tonality changed and you emphasized certain things, and I thought that was great. And yeah, you were really there and present. And Michelle, I know it's hard to get out of your head because we're all coaches and we just want to go ahead. But in the end of the day, though, it seemed like you really got to the point where you just said, okay, let me just embrace this. And you were able to just play full out with Ibrahim. So I thought it was great.
Thank you. Michelle just commented, you notice how much her brain wanted to be distracted to all the outside noises and so forth, and just kind of noticing that process is really cool too. Who else was just talking?
I was just me. I was going to say, I think the friendliness and the tonality that Ibrahim was choosing was bringing me back in. So it helped as the client to recenter as well. Like, it was very comfortable. It was very endearing, and it felt like, oh, it's okay to be here right now, you know?
Ooh, that right there. It's okay to be here right now. That has so many applications. We just spent a long time talking to one of our mastermind groups yesterday about the fact that it's okay to have emotions because you have them. It's okay to be here because you're here. It's okay to have the circumstances that you have because they're there. Like, just the existence of something equals the okayness of it. That creates safety for clients. Whereas if the coach doesn't have that kind of a safe space being created, then the client can get judgmental toward himself or herself. The client can think the coach is judging them, and it can pull the client away from any kind of real discussion because this is not okay. One of the worst things we can do as a coach is judge the client for whatever it is they talk to us about. You can pretty much guarantee that'll be your last call with that client. Why would they come back and get judged? Like, they're being judged all the time for these issues inside their head and sometimes outside their head. So for us to give them that experience, it's okay to be here, is everything. I'm really glad you shared that. Kristen's speaker's not working. She said in the chat, I thought the pacing was good, succinct and to the point. Ibrahim did a great job. Loved Michelle's internal awareness. Thank you for that, Kristen. Michelle earlier said at the end, when I was talking about what can we do to clean it all up, an anchor could work as well to give somebody a thing to bring into the conversation next time. So in Michelle's case, if she notices that people haven't texted her back, then she could just go back to some kind of anchor where she remembers her value, or, spend time with her family or something like that, that changes her experience. Another thing that we might want to do, this is just, specific to this issue, is there's some, like, she must be keeping score somehow. Either in her head, she's going, you know what? I texted Sally like 3 days ago and she hasn't texted me back. Or I texted her this morning and this topic requires a response before the end of the day. There's some kind of judgment going on, and then keeping score that's creating this idea of how she knows she's been ghosted. And so that's something that we could play with too. And maybe after sending text messages, like, delete the conversation from your phone so that you don't scroll down and go, oh, look at that ghost text message right there, and look at this ghost message right there. So that's another thing that we can do with people, is create disconnections, not create disconnections, but disconnect from them knowing or their measurement of, or awareness of, when the problem is coming. And then let's say we help Michelle disconnect from that. And so once you send a text message to Sally, she forgets about it, or she puts in her calendar like 5 days later to follow up with her. And then the appointment comes up and she goes, oh, I just got to follow up with Sally, but not make it a big deal that Sally ghosted me. Then that could help change some of the triggers as well. So Michelle just typed in, it's a deeper relationship with a friend where I noticed pattern response changes. Awesome. Now this, I'm not going to go much deeper into this here because this could be a whole nother thing. And Michelle, you can take this into your coaching in between these calls. Now what we're talking about is potentially her not responding to you as much as her not responding to your growth or your new patterns. Because I know you've changed a lot of your patterns in the last few years based on everything you've done, your realizations, your book, your reframes, all of that stuff. And a lot of times, especially people that are not in the work doing this stuff on themselves, it feels like they're being abandoned. Because here's this best friend that all of a sudden doesn't need me anymore, or is going to these seminars, or now is doing these things. And a lot of times the other people who we think are abandoning us are feeling the abandonment from us because we're changing. And then a lot of times we're expecting them to change with us, or there's some expectation here, obviously. She's not doing the right thing according to whatever your expectations are. And that's something to take a look at. What are my expectations? And take a look at the friendship. Maybe is this friendship run its course? Or maybe is the friendship evolving into something different? And maybe you don't even need the text messages anymore to still create the connection. Because a lot of times when a relationship evolves from one stage to another, we want the new stage to look like the old stage. And a lot of times we're stopping the relationship from evolving because we're not allowing the new stage to also evolve new circumstances around that relationship. So anyway, that's just a bunch of stuff, potentials to think about with this particular issue with Michelle, but also anything that's relating to, hey, people are not doing what they used to do, or they're not following through, or my relationships are changing, or anything like that. I mean, if you're in a long-term relationship, friendship or romantic, it's going to change at some point in time. There will be shifts. There will be curves. And if we expect the curves to look like the straightaways, we're going to be in some serious trouble. So a lot of times we just need to check in with our own expectations. I like that one. Don't expect the curves to look like the straightaways. Perfect. So Michelle said that might connect some things right there, that little discussion. Kathy might need to do some expanded awareness of me not responding to her texts. See, I do this so that we can produce whatever triggers, Kathy. That's the story I'm going to tell. And now you've got me looking in my phone to see if I do have a text message from you. But, you know, I'm just going to pretend it was all on purpose to help you get it up so we can get it out.
It was a while ago, Sean, and it's fine. I don't have an issue around it. I just thought it was funny because when Michelle talked about that, that was the first thing that came to my head.
I have somebody that does that too.
I was like Michelle. I did have this thing against people not responding to me. And honestly, I don't know where it was with all the growth. I just got to the point where I just don't know what's going on in their world. And that's the story I tell myself. I don't know what's going on in their world. So at the end of the day, if they want to respond to me, they will. If they don't, they don't. And if it's bad enough, I'll send another text and pester them again. So
bingo. Yep. And that's another really powerful reminder, is that there's always a story.
Yeah.
And we don't need to know the story to know that a story exists. And most of the time, I believe, if we knew the story, we wouldn't have any more questions. And it wouldn't bother us. There's something about the elements that are missing in the story that we don't know that causes us to hold on to it. But if we knew the story and then those elements were answered, then it was like, oh, okay, well, it's either I totally get it, I understand, or it's not that big of a deal because it's not for the reason that I was pretending it was for. You know, the intention isn't there.
Now, if you like this video, you're really going to want to watch that video. It's all about the art and science of coaching, how to overcome your fears, and how to increase your permission to take more risks.
In order for us to really know ourselves, I don't think we have to be abandoned, but I think we have to be willing to.
We have to be willing. I have this post-it. What are you willing to lose?
That's cool.